Hi, everyone. Hello, hello. Happy Monday to all of you. And I really hope that you are having a happy Monday wherever you are. Thank you for joining me. This is A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. And I'm Tomás Garza, your host. And as you may know from having seen this live stream for the last few months, I'm devoting Monday to taking a short break from the workbook for students that we're going through here on this live stream. And I'm focusing on a special aspect of spirituality and life through the lens, of course, of A Course in Miracles, because this live stream is all about A Course in Miracles. And it is my really number one spiritual practice and platform, and has been for the last 8 years. So consequently, this is what I teach. This is what I coach. And it's all over the place. Yeah, it pervades everything. So on Monday, I like to call it a special focus. So we'll take an aspect of life, which we're going to do right here in the next few minutes, and we'll go in depth with it through the lens of the teachings of A Course in Miracles. So my aim here is to do something a little bit different one day a week, to change things up a little bit one day a week, and also to focus on practical application. That's what I really want to do, is focus with this on practical application of these teachings. Because spirituality is all about putting things into practice. It's about experience. It's about how you take some of the information that you receive, that's presented, and apply it. So we're going to look at that. And the topic for today is the obvious. We're focusing on the obvious. Now, I've got a couple of you here. Hey, hey, hey. Cindy, my wife Cindy, is joining me live from the back porch. Sat there. The temperatures have cooled down enough here in Phoenix, Arizona for us to be really outside. Now, I love the heat, but a lot of people don't in the summertime here in the Northern Hemisphere. In Arizona, hot, 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 48 degrees Celsius. It hit a couple of times. Yeah, it's routinely in the 40s, so it's routinely over 100 Fahrenheit, sometimes over 110 for sure. This is the time of year where it becomes really beautiful. I mean, it's beautiful always, but this is where it becomes really, really beautiful, where it's still warm, especially relative to other places in the United States, unless you're from Miami or something like that. And it's really, really still sunny. It's warm enough that you can comfortably be outside for long periods of time. And that's where Cindy's joining me from. So welcome. It's great to have you on the show. All right. All of you feel welcome to, whether you're catching me on the replay or not, say hello. It's always fun to know where people are from, because we have a worldwide audience here on Enlightened World Network, and that's a lot of fun to have. So feel free to say hello and pop questions or comments in the comment thread if you've got them. All right. So why are we focusing on the obvious? That's a really good question, isn't it? Yeah, we should ask ourselves that. Each and every one of us should ask ourselves that. Why? Right? Why? Why are we focusing on the obvious? Well, because we miss it. We miss it. The obvious is so obvious that we do not see it. That's what I mean by we miss it. It's like not seeing our own face when we look in the mirror. It's like not having our own real experience. We miss what's obvious. Now, this is not, by the way, because we're inherently incompetent. We're not broken. You're not broken. At the core of all of our being, there's nothing wrong with us. We're actually created quite perfect. Now, I'm not referring to a human body. That's not perfect. I mean, is it? Right. It doesn't last forever, for starters. It is subject to wild fluctuation. One day we feel great, one day we don't. Our emotions are subject to wild fluctuation. One minute we could be on top of the world, feeling absolutely fabulous. And then the next minute, we're doubting ourselves. It's part of human life. What's obvious is we miss what's obvious. We miss the obvious truth and the experience of who we really are. And it's not because we're incompetent, as we just talked about. It's because we choose to be incompetent. Does that sound harsh? No problem. All of us do this. We choose to be ignorant. It's a choice. What's obvious is that each of us has a choice right now in the present moment. Now, to put it in terminology of A Course in Miracles, it's, are we choosing God? In other words, are we choosing love? Are we choosing our higher self? Or are we choosing the ego, on the other hand? Are we choosing to play it small, littleness, and fear? That's the choice that we make. And what's obvious is we have the inherent ability to make that choice. Now, part of that is we could choose to ignore that. Our free will has never been taken away from us. It may feel like it, but we're giving it away. We give it away when we give our power away in the world. We do it in many different ways. We do it at work. We do it in our relationships. We do it in our own health. We do this all the time without even thinking about it. We make things complicated for ourselves, and we don't have to. That's obvious that we don't have to. So what we miss when we're racing about in the world is, in fact, the obvious. The obvious truth of who we are. We never pause to ask the question, so how can we expect ourselves to know the answer, right? If we're never pausing to ask the question, if we're never taking a deep breath to pause from our incessant, constant stream of activity, to just take one cycle of breath and chill ourselves down. I was, if I had been recording this on my private page, I would have said something between chill, down. If you can follow me, that's awesome. We need that. Sometimes we need to be really, really direct and harsh with ourselves, or the universe deals us things like accidents, like setbacks, where we really have the opportunity to choose love yet again. We are one with God. That should be obvious. Now, if you're familiar with A Course in Miracles, the presentation of truth that the Course gives us, and yes, it's in words and reality, and the experience of who we are is in fact beyond words. It's beyond all concepts. But here we are in the world. We need words. We need live streams. We need teachers to help us along. So the way the Course presents it can seem like a very happy revelation to a lot of people. And that has been the case in my own life. No question about it. When I discovered this course 8 years ago, it really helped me to put into perspective, and more importantly, to put into practice some ideas that I have always held. We are, in fact, one with God. We are perfect precisely the way we are created. What could be more obvious? We are limitless. What could be more obvious? We miss the obvious when we choose to play it small. Now, by playing it small, I don't mean earning less money in a certain job than you could in another job. That's not what I mean. I mean spiritually, experientially, playing it small, tiny, in fact, compared to the truth of who we really are. We choose this. And the beauty of all of this, having never lost the power of decision, we can decide yet again. We can undo all of our ridiculous psychodrama. We can undo all of it. So when we identify with the ego, with a separate sense of self, we miss the obvious, or we're choosing to ignore it. The ego is afraid. It's very, very literally afraid of the truth, because it's afraid, and quite correctly, that you'll leave it to the side. Now, understand that in words, it appears that we're setting up a dichotomy, doesn't it? It appears that we're setting up an either or, right? Choose God, choose the ego. Well, that is the choice that we have here in the world, in the present moment. One choice is real, the other is not. And you can absolutely bet that you know, deep down, experientially, and know, you're watching Enlightened World Network. Come on, right? You know which one is real and which is not. So that is the choice that we make. Now we could side for the unreal. Now understand that the ego is not an enemy. This is a really, really important point that a lot of spiritual seekers miss. They really do. And it's easy to understand why. It's very easy to understand. The ego it's not who we are, yet we continue to choose it and side with it. And what does that bring us? Suffering. It brings us suffering. That's suffering. It's confusion, it's stress, it's feeling out of sorts, more or less all the time, with little periods of time where you feel great and everything's wonderful. And then it breaks over, right? So what do we do with this? That's the question. What do we do with this? Well, we choose love. We choose God. We choose our own obvious limitlessness. The ego is not an enemy. So one of the things that we have to pay attention to on the path is treating it as an enemy. That, in A Course in Miracles terminology, makes it real to us. Anything that we treat as an enemy is real to us, isn't it? I mean, think about nation states going to war. The danger is clear and present, and it feels real. We do this psychologically with ourselves. We do it in our own minds. Now, if we make something of the ego like an opponent, then we make it real for ourselves, and then we're finding ourselves stuck. We're in combative mode. We're in a defense mode. We're in fight or flight mode. We're confused. We're prone to attack because we feel like we're going to be attacked. It's fear itself. So the ego is not an opponent to be kicked in the face. It's not a mortal enemy. Many people in many circles in this lifetime are fond of saying, kick fear in the face. Well, and if you count yourselves among them, that's great. I really, really hope that you get some inspiration from that. But you don't have to kick it in the face. It's not there. It's not real. The ego is simply a mistake. It is not a mortal enemy. It is simply a mistake. a mistake to be, frankly, set aside, acknowledged as just a mistake, and then laid to the side. That's it. That's how we do it. So I understand quite fully why a number of people on the path would want to kick it in the face or make it an opponent or destroy it. It's a very, very important consideration that each of us should pay attention to on the path. And the ego, any feeling of inadequacy that we may have, any sense of feeling less than or not enough, or, well, I mean, I just said inadequate, but incompetent, dumb, stupid, too old, too young, too irrelevant, but any of those superlatives, any of those comparisons, the ego produces this sense of inadequacy. Why? When we side with it, we see ourselves as less than. We do. We see ourselves as a frail body cut off from other frail bodies running around for what appear to be scarce resources. We said they're scarce. What if they're not? What if they're not? What if they're not, and we spend lifetimes thinking that they are, when we have all of the tools right here in our hands, so to speak, in the present moment to undo this mistake forever, for all time? The ego produces our sense of suffering, so it makes no sense, does it, for us to trust it as a guide. Who do you turn to instead? Turn to your guides instead of the ego, a false sense of self, of separation, of anxiety and torment and fear. Turn to your guides. If you're following A Course in Miracles, we're encouraged to turn to the voice for God, the universal inspiration, if you prefer, in other words, the Holy Spirit. And you could also turn to Jesus himself for this. Your guides, human or non-human, or both, right? Or both. The beauty of A Course in Miracles is it goes along with any spiritual tradition that you may be practicing right now. It does not require, like some fundamentalist religious traditions, that you drop your affiliation, that you drop your love for, your practice of, your association with certain other groups or people. No, none of that. It's completely 100% inclusive. By design, it is a self-study curriculum. So if you're new to this, it's extraordinary. It's quite unique in world spirituality. And if you are a longtime practitioner and you're familiar with this, you'll know that from your own experience. So, as always, I'm more than willing to answer any questions that you may have here live. I know there've been a couple of us tuning in here, so welcome and thank you. And if you're catching this on the replay, feel welcome to leave some comments or questions. If you've not seen this show before on Enlightened World Network, it has been running since January. And on the average, I'm doing it about 6 days a week. I always take Sundays off because Cindy and I go hiking on Sunday. However, it's been running, and if there's a particular, we're going to cover lesson 170 in the workbook tomorrow. So if there's a particular, if you're going through the workbook and there's a particular past episode that you want to catch, I find people's commentaries here, and it's only a half-hour time slot, by the way, so these are not extraordinarily long videos. I always find other people's commentary on course ideas very, very helpful. There are a number of them out there. So I want to invite you to check out Enlightened World Network's YouTube channel. And the network has a playlist for each show. Each program here on the show has its list, and it's updated several times a week. So that is a great place to go if you'd like to catch some past episodes, and feel welcome to say hello here in the comments. I'm going to sign off, and I just want to invite you before I go here to really know that you're not broken deep down. And if you need help, ask your guides for help. All too often, we ask the ego for help. It's afraid of the obvious, so it leads us astray. So if you're done and sick of leading yourself astray, then we have a beautiful opportunity right now to completely chart a new course for ourselves. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me. This has been A Course in Miracles 365, Awakening to Love. Have a great